Hey guys, Loco here. I realized if it wasn't for YouTube or my friends coming over, I would never keep my room clean. But because of you guys, I'm keeping my room clean. So recently on Media Day, they did an LCS anonymous survey and 86 LCS and Academy players were surveyed. And this is something they do often in traditional sports like NBA and NFL. It helps them get an honest answer in situations where normally it would be very awkward. For example, they can ask players who they think is the most valuable player in the league. Normally, most players can't answer honestly due to conflict of interest towards their teammates, but in an anonymous survey, they can. So it was conducted by Kian Lam, Hive brother, and even though a lot of the questions were goofy, there were actually a lot of interesting questions and answers, so I want to go over them. So let's start with question number 1. Which role is the most impactful in professional play? So as you can see, most players were very adamant about it being mid or jungle. One player said top doesn't matter until you're against the Shy, and then it really matters. So maybe this was someone that went to Worlds and got to play versus the Shy or Scrim versus IG. And similar comments were made about double lift in North America for bot lane. I have to hard agree regarding mid and jungle being the most impactful. And then the comments about like double lift or the Shy for bot lane and top lane, I think more are outlier cases than, yeah, bot or top lane is really impactful. It's just double lift and the Shy are incredibly good players. To go into more details why I think mid and jungle are the most impactful, let's start with mid. I mean, mid is a carry position that often plays the most OP champions. They're on the center of the map, they can affect top lane, jungle, bot lane depending on where they want to roam, and they can also be ganked from either side, so they're also a really easy lane to die from. And generally, most of the skill expression heavy champions are in mid lane. There's a few in top lane and few in AD carry, but I think, yeah, the most difficult champions to play almost all go mid lane. Also, mid priority is the single most important macro concept in pro play.
Ultimately, lane priority comes from a champion being able to push a minion wave faster than the opposing champion. This can be done through a number of ways. A champion could threaten to kill their enemy, generating kill pressure and forcing their opponent to play defensively. Another way is that a champion has more wave clear than their opponent, so you are consistently pushed under your tower. The final way is jungle presence. Having a jungler spend time, vision, and resources into assisting a lane can force the opponent to play more defensively at the risk of being outnumbered.
And the entirety of early and mid game relies so heavily on which team gets mid lane prio. So yeah, mid lane being the most important role, I don't think many people are going to disagree. As for jungle, it's not so much a carry role anymore, but it's still very impactful in pro play due to the ability to dictate the early game. Currently, the jungle pool right now that's being really played is very gank heavy. You have J4, Elise, Kiana, Lee, Rek'Sai, all these champions want to gank consistently and keep the game snowballing. They want to hit level 3 and then just keep ganking. Power farming isn't that much of an option anymore, so you want to gank, hopefully that gank went well, and then you want to push out the lane with the laner to soak XP and get to the next level. Also, other than ganking, most of the time you're doing like scuttlecrap and fighting with other junglers or invading onto the other junglers. There's a lot of interactions with various members of the other team all over the map constantly. So if your jungler is better, it will clearly show and put your team ahead early and mid game. So for the rest of the answers, I was pretty surprised by support being third highest voted by a pretty good margin. But once I realized this isn't a scientific study on what role is the most impactful, rather, what role do pro players think is the most impactful, it actually made sense. Two of the most popular supports right now are Nautilus and Leona, and they both get mobility boost as their first item. Especially with no longer needing to upgrade your support item once you buy it at the start, Mobi boosts are being bought really early in the game. So there's a lot of roaming from supports, there's a lot of skirmishing around river and mid lane 3v3, and if you've ever been jumped on by a Nautilus or Leona in solo queue when you don't expect it, you know how impactful that can feel. Now, let's go to question number 2. Which role is the least impactful in pro play? I don't know why they asked this, maybe to double check if the inverse is true, but yeah, it just confirms what was asked in the first question. On to question 3, finally a new question. I would rather ... win the LCS or make it out of groups. This one was pretty divided, but it makes sense when you think about it because they're essentially asking the players about their competitive success. Step 1 is regional dominance, aka winning LCS. And step 2 is international success, or the start of international success, aka making it out of groups. So for those players that have never done step 1, they're gonna say win the LCS is more important and what they would rather do. And for those that have already won, they'll most likely say make it out of groups. Also, a former world champion said it's definitely easier to win Worlds than LCS. So we have 4 world champions currently in the LCS right now: Bang, Crown, CoreJJ, and Impact. And I'm gonna guess this was Bang, since he's won Worlds multiple times, and it's probably easier to win Worlds with Faker and Marin than it is to win LCS with Saligo and Fake God. Sorry, 100 Thieves. So for question number 4, they asked, would you trust any of your teammates with your life on a deserted island?
I did it. Fire!
I think this is a stupid question. Why is this being even asked? But to give my thoughts on it, don't trust League of Legends pro players to do anything but play League of Legends professionally. Let's move on to question 5. Has being a pro helped with your dating life? Oh my god. How do you even answer this? Short of it is, definitely yes. Most LCS pros are nerdy guys that didn't have the best social skills when they were younger.
Oh, I almost forgot. I wanted to introduce our new student. Will you come up here, please, son? Class, say hello to Mr. Astronominov.
Please, sir, call me
Faker.
And they just play video games all the time, so being an LCS pro opens up a lot of doors for e-girls and other girls that are working in the esports industry. It's definitely an attractive career to have. Personally, working in esports definitely did help my dating life, but once I wanted to start seeing girls outside of esports for various reasons, I still had to develop other qualities beyond being like a known person in esports. If there's any LCS pros watching this, enjoy your time, but eventually you're gonna have to branch out, my dudes. Before we go to the next question, one player anonymously said, yes, I met KP in Katowice 2015 at the tournament. Oh my god, Centauran, you're just as innocent as you were back in 2015. For question number 6, they asked, do you have burner accounts on social media? So for those of you guys that don't know what burner accounts are, they're secondary accounts that famous people have to comment on things publicly without people knowing it's them. I'm surprised that LCS pros have burner accounts, because you can just say what's on your mind or stay off of social media, you little snakes. And also, if you have a burner account and you never use it, what's the point? Now for number 7, they asked, do you watch anime? Another stupid question, but to give my 2 cents on it, if there's a Venn diagram of League players and anime watchers, I think it would overlap very, very heavily. So I'm not surprised by the high amount of yeses, but why even ask this? Now, for question 8, they asked, which player, if any, did you look up to before becoming a pro? So players that received multiple mentions include Doublelift, Faker, Bjergsen, Madlife, Uzi, Big Fat LP, Mata, The Odd One, Diamond Prox, Hotshot GG, Reginald, and Deft. Lots of old school players from all over the world. I'm actually pretty surprised at the lack of Afro, because Afro is someone that's been famous and really good for such a long time. So a lot of pro players probably looked up to Afro when they first started out, and he's also really charismatic. I think it's more of recency bias and him not really doing well on 100 Thieves, so people aren't saying it. And Doublelift overtaking Faker as the number 1 answer is also a surprise to me. But then again, we are in NA, and most players probably looked up to and played against Doublelift in solo queue and not Faker. So yeah, congrats to Doublelift with 9 mentions. Lastly, the final question they asked was, which region is better, North America or Europe? And actually, 35% of people answered North America. Well, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but this was a trick question to find out which LCS players are delusional, and apparently 35% of them are delusional. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was actually a very fun content to do. A lot of these questions were pretty much a waste of time, but for the ones that were interesting, I hope I'm able to give my thoughts on why pros might have answered that way. And also, let me know if you guys have any questions that you want to ask the pros or ask me personally, and I'll do my best to answer back to you in the comments. Before I go, LCS has just started, so I hope you guys are enjoying the content. I'll do a lot more content around LCS. And one more thing, I'm not crazy, I'm just Loco. Bye!